When you look at the dragons, what do you see? It's important. What do you see?
I suppose I see us.
Tell me.
Everyone says Targaryens are closer to gods than to men. But they say that because of our dragons. Without them, we're just like everyone else.
The idea that we control the dragons is an illusion. They are a power man should never have trifled with. One that brought Valyria its doom. If we don't mind our own histories, it will do the same to us. Targaryen must understand this to be king. Or queen.
Hello! After 8 weeks of chaos, scheming, and character conflict, the House of the Dragon Season 2 finale is finally here, and to help me break it down for the wrap-up is my co-host, Evan Harris.
We're here one last time for House of the Dragon Season 2 finale. One last ride. But just like Fast and the Furious, we have 2 more seasons of hopefully 10 more episodes, or 20 more episodes, till it all wraps up. They just confirmed that Season 4 is the final season, which we'll probably be getting in 2028 most likely, with House of the Dragon Season 2 coming in 2026, probably around the same time next year, or 2 years from now. There was a little bit of hope that it could come out next year, given the report that it could be filming later this year. But now they're saying filming is early 2025.
Yeah.
Production, longer episodes maybe, or just, there's a total war now in Season 3. So most likely, again, 2026. And I'm cool with that because looking at HBO's 2025 slate, we're going to be fed pretty well.
Pretty packed.
So regardless, I'm excited. And, of course, we'll be back for Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
We got our first teaser, like 10 seconds, but still something.
Yeah, exactly. 10 seconds. But, it has that Game of Thrones vibe, not as, like, chaos-oriented like this show is and the other show was. But I'm excited. It's going to be a new vibe, new show, and that's always very exciting. But, yeah, speaking of exciting, there's a lot of things to get into here. We're going to deep dive into the finale here and give our overall thoughts on the season.
Yeah, for me, like the Season 2 finale, I think it maintains a solid grasp on the journey it put its core characters through, though at the risk of developing maybe the supporting cast. We've talked about it a lot in this show for the last couple of episodes with like Jace, Bela, Rhaena, those type of characters. But yeah, hopefully with a lengthier Season 3 and 4, House of the Dragon can balance out its spectacle and drama much better, hopefully. But yeah, I don't know where you want to start at.
Just overall, I agree with you there. I think it wasn't my favorite episode of the season. I like last week's a bit better. 2 is still peak for me. 2 and 5, I think. 2 and 6, I forget. So many episodes. But yeah, 2, 5, 6, 7. 4 was great because of the battle, but the first half wasn't the best. But I'm very pleased with this season as well. And yeah, there was some supporting stuff that I didn't, get the most out of from Season 2 of House of the Dragon. But we kind of got a lot of what we wanted from this episode in terms of character perspective. Last week we were saying we want more Jace instead of the Alicent stuff. This week kind of making me roll back the Alicent stuff, because the Alicent stuff was more meaningful and it connects well to what we see here in terms of that whole freedom that we talked about last week.
Yeah.
And it went a lot more, like I obviously said, like, okay, she sees the eagle, automatically I think of freedom. I didn't think she meant this kind of freedom in the finale where she's just out of there. We'll talk about that. But also, yeah, so I like the Alicent stuff this week and last week. But the Jace stuff, we complained like we didn't get enough Jace last week in particular. But this week we do get the Jace and Bela scene that I kind of wanted, which was great. I just wanted more of that, which was good. But yeah, let's get the cons out of the way first of all, because I think overall solid episode. Couple of nitpicks, not even a nitpick, it's just an overall issue with the season. The whole Rhaena storyline, absolutely useless, dumb, ridiculous. didn't get anything out of the storyline, didn't get anything out of the character, not satisfying in any way possible. And I said last week, okay, in the finale, they're just going to push her, getting her dragon to the finale. It's going to expect us to be very happy about it, just like we were for Ulf and Hugh. No, she didn't even get the dragon in the finale. She's looking at dragon bones or whatever, sheep bones, whatever.
Drinking water from a river.
Drinking water from river, shivering. Like, am I supposed to be captivated? Or am I supposed to be compelled? Because I'm not. I'm just watching her do shit. And again, like I said last week, she has one job. One job. You take care of Aegon and the other kid, Joffrey, whatever his name.
Viserys. Yeah.
Viserys, thank you. And I'm just like, what are we doing here? Who's in charge of the kids? That's not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But then, like, Rhaena? What are you doing? I don't care about your storyline. Make me care about your storyline first before we see her tentatively taming her dragon. So that was just like, okay, what are we doing here with this? A waste of screen time there that could have gone to, again, maybe some more Jace scenes. I feel like we got a lot of perspective, so I don't even know what we could have added here. Instead of Rhaena, but again, maybe just a longer Jace scene or maybe a longer Rhaenyra scene. I don't know. Put some more time somewhere else.
Like we discussed, we already discussed this at length for 10 minutes last week, but so I'm not gonna repeat myself. But yeah, I just I was talking about it earlier on social media, but I think for a lot of reasons, I think cutting Neros is a big fumble from the show's part. But even if you were to do it, okay, sell me on it, but at least commit to the bit. Give Rhaena the actual storyline of developing this bond with this dragon. Let me care about why she feels the way that she feels and why she thinks that this is important, not only for herself, but also for her house, because obviously her house is looking for dragon riders. So again, give me something to connect with this character and this dragon. But the show is just wasting so much time doing other stuff that I do think it's important. Again, the Alicent stuff, it's very repetitive, but it is important. And just again, for example, just this one episode, I think it's good, the material that we get from Tyland Lannister and Tyrosh with the Triarchy or whatever. But I'm watching this and I'm like, all of these C-list characters are getting more screen time than some of the actual important players that are gonna play an important part by the end of this story. And I don't these people are not gonna be relevant by the end of next season. And Rhaena is somebody that should be constantly developed as a character, and it just feels very hollow. And I don't know, it feels again, I don't know if it was because of the writer's strike or they wrote it in a certain way, because this thing, this episode leaked on Monday, and I had already seen several things from this episode by then. And I saw that and I was like, oh, they're ending it there, right? Huh? And my first thought was is this them not fully committing to the Nettles thing, or what? It's because honestly, I don't know what the fuck they were trying to do with this story.
It's crazy to me. You committed to Ulf and Hugh, but you couldn't commit to Nettles. Maybe because Ulf and Hugh are easier because they're already in King's Landing. Maybe I don't know where Nettles' storyline begins, if it's out of location, so maybe that was difficult for them. I don't know, but yeah, like you said, if they didn't want to do Nettles, which is already a weird choice to make, because this show is all about introducing characters in a variety of different locations. So even if even if Nettles wasn't in the main locations of, Dragonstone area or Riverlands or whatever, it's we still could have gotten her. And if you don't want to do her, do Rhaena. And like you said, they didn't commit to Rhaena at all. She was basically an afterthought. She hardly got any scenes during Dragonstone. And when she leaves, we hardly get any scenes there that are, again, we get scenes, but they're not interesting from her or extended in any case to make us interested in her character. I just didn't really care for her storyline at all. And this is the season to do it. That's the most important thing. Next season, Ryan Condal was all the directors after the episode is this is a up and down war in season 2, but season 3 is going to be total war. So we don't have time anymore to focus on taming a new dragon or these at least my opinion, at least getting more dragon seeds or whatever. It's yes, all next season isn't just going to be straight up battles. We're not doing season 8, but it's just I just expected all the Dragon Seed plot lines to be at least concluded or at least started
or on the same level, like
on the
in
same
terms of
level.
development. Yeah.
Exactly. Ulf and Hugh, there's
And
more
Adam.
to them. And Adam, there's more to them coming in the next season, obviously. But it's like at least we got them taming the dragons. We got a lot of their scenes.
We know their personalities, like we know what they're about. And this is, again, keep in mind, these characters were just introduced this season. Rhaena was introduced last season, and like we still like, I don't really know much about her as a character beyond her being sad that she doesn't have a dragon. Like that's not a personality trait.
What's
that's
her relationship? Exactly. Yeah, not a character arc. And what's her relationship to Baela, to Daemon, to Jace, to her reaction to Luke dying? Again, all we got was like, oh, she can't tame a dragon. She's sad about that. Everybody else is going to war. She wants to be part of the war. So she leaves the kids and goes to find a dragon. Isn't it so riveting that she's doing all this for? No, it's not. It's not. And it's the same thing that fucking, what's her name? The small girl from Game of Thrones. Arya. It's like the whole storyline with the blind shit and whatever that was. In Bravos was the same thing for me. I'm like, what are we? It just wasn't really compelling at all for me, at least as a viewer. I was just like, this whole storyline, ridiculous. Arya towards the later end of the series, just in terms of compelling character, just didn't work for me. And I think Rhaena's just like even less than that. It's just like they're hardly giving her scenes. They want us to be interested, but I'm just not.
Yeah. And like the thing is, like, I do think there is a world where Rhaena taking over Nedos' story, if you want to cut it because of time or whatever your reason is, I think you can make it work, because there is a point, and like kind of spoilers for the books, and like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rhaenyra grows like suspicious of Nedos to the point that she kind of like wants to get rid of her in the book. I can see that. I can see the showrunners like Ryan Condal and like the writers' room rewriting that in a way where Rhaena abandoning the kids and putting them in danger next season because she was trying to claim a dragon. I think that could be like a decent way to like, connect the two and like merge the two characters. But again, like,
it's blatantly dumb.
Yeah. Why should I care if I don't really care about Rhaena? And I think like another aspect of it is because Daemon becomes kind of like very protective of Nedos in the book. Obviously that would make sense in the show because that's his literal daughter, right?
Okay, yeah.
So that there's like a kind of like a wish that happens between the two because of this little girl. So it would make sense in the show that girl is Rhaena, but again, like, I just don't care about her as a character.
2 seasons deep, and we don't get much of Rhaena and Baela, or Rhaena and Baela and Daemon's relationship to them as a father. We don't really get that. Because he is directly their father, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like, what's going on here? We had that one Daemon and Baela scene in episode 2 where Daemon walks by Baela, she looks back, and she's just like, did you guys just argue? She talks to Rhaenyra and is like, did you guys just argue? What's going on here? Yeah. I'm just like, talk to your dad. Let's have some scenes with her dad. Maybe they'll fit that in next season. Daemon is now fully committed with Rhaenyra, so I don't know.
I can totally see them adding a scene between Rhaena and Daemon, kind of similar, and we'll get to this later, but kind of similar to the scene with Alyn and Corlys in this episode, which is one of the best of the season by far. I think it's great dialogue. I really liked it. But yeah, I can totally see them kind of like fixing some of that relationship problems by adding scenes like that next season. But
hopefully, again, that was an issue leaving season 1, and I think that continues to be an issue leaving season 2 in terms of Daemon's fatherly aspects. But having said that, I liked what Daemon got a lot this season. I think he had probably my favorite storyline of the season.
Yeah, I don't think the problem this season is like the character arcs of the main 3 players. Like, I think it's very
Daemon,
much
Rhaenyra,
and Alicent. This is very much their show, and it makes sense that that's where the focus mostly goes to. But I just think if Game of Thrones managed to, at least the early seasons, if Game of Thrones managed to do this with way more characters, giving everybody a little bit to do, you can do it. You could easily do it.
Yeah,
and add 2 more fucking episodes next season. Don't fucking rate yourself in a corner.
Yeah, and I think I like a lot of the side characters that we got. Like Aemond, I thought was very well done this season and this episode. Aemond, I liked a lot about what Helaena did. I was very happy that we got the Aemond Helaena extended scenes here twice. So Aemond and Helaena are very good. Aegon, we got even more of Aegon than I expected this season post his tragedy. So I was very compelled by that. Larys was also very interesting. So I liked a lot of those scenes, but the Corlys and Adam and Alyn scenes from all throughout the season, people were complaining about those scenes. But for me, I liked every single one of them leading up until this final moment, like you said, was very good. I think a lot of the scenes we got in this episode are very well acted and very well portrayed from across the board here. But yeah, speaking about great stuff, let's get to it again. You mentioned it, not so great stuff again outside of the Rhaena storyline with the Tywin plan. I think we can just start. I didn't.
That's where the episode starts. So
I didn't really categorically separate this between Team Black and Team Green.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
Ironically, it is all over the place, and Alicent kind of molds the two together by the very end, anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's start with this. I feel like it was a lot. Like this episode could have been shorter. Because I didn't really mind. I didn't really care for the Tywin and Leshore.
Something like that.
Something like that. I took it in my notes. Scenes. But I thought it was very interesting. It felt very Game of Thronesy, going to a new location, getting a new character, and it was pretty cool. Lohar. So Tyland goes to Tyrosh again. He's asking the Triarchy if they can help out defeat this blockade and be done with the blockade, so that they can, have a more prosperous King's Landing, prosperous realm. And again, it's funny because Helaena mentions it later in the episode, but why do they hate us? We didn't do the blockade. Yeah, but we are the kingdom right now. We
should be the ones to break it, and we're not.
Exactly. So that's Tyland's job, trying to break the blockade. That seems like it could be leading to a possible conflict, as we see some ships that sail in the finale, or at the end. But yeah, I thought this was a pretty cool scene. Lohar seemed like a very cool character. She was very funny, great performance. She's the admiral of the Triarchy. And it starts off with it's very cliche. It's like, oh, the rich, pompous person has to go down and humble himself, get down and dirty. And of course, they eventually team up. Like, there was no instance where I was like, okay, this isn't going to work out for the Lannisters, but it does. And we got a lot more scenes, like you said, a lot more scenes than I expected. Because I thought the first council scene, great, we settled it, cool. I didn't think it was going to go into like the mud thing and then the dinner thing.
Dinner party. Yeah.
So it was just extended. So talking about all of that right now, getting that storyline out of the way, I thought it was solid. Again, overextended. But again, solid, cool. And I like that Tyland's doing this. Again, very much like later seasons of Game of Thrones where the Lannisters were getting help from, what was it called?
The Iron Bank?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Iron Bank. Yeah. The Iron Bank and just other allies helping out the quote-unquote bad team. And the big thing here is that the Triarchy want the Stepstones again. Stepstones being a really prominent location from early season 1. And that's what they want. And they want to put a tax on it as well. So yeah, and before they wanted the Stepstones, they wanted all those dragons. And Tyland's like, I can't do that. So that was very funny as well.
Yeah, I agree with you mostly about this story beat on the episode. I do think it goes a little bit too long. Like, I feel like you could have easily cut the dinner part and you still get the same point across. Like, you have like the humiliation scene at the beginning, then he wins the mud fight, and then that's a wrap. Like,
that's a wrap.
Like, the rest doesn't really add much to his character, or like even it only adds like personality, which I wouldn't really be bothered by it if that's the same kind of attention that they were giving other characters, like we just previously discussed. Like, I wouldn't really care, but like, since they're being very selective about who they show more of, and it doesn't seem like they're focusing on the right people. I'm like,
it's not like we were like scratching for time here. The episode's extended. It's 80 minutes instead of the usual hour. So there's an extra 20 minutes. It could have been 70. It could have been an hour. So, weird. Or again, like you said, they could have added it to a totally different character. So yeah, after this, Tyland goes to Tyrosh. We do that. Lohar is coming with them. We see Aemond. And I think this is a good time to talk about Aemond overall. Aemond Watch has been very entertaining, very worthwhile this season. Coming into season 2, he killed Luke, and I was just like, okay, what's he going to do now? He kills Luke. He's going to come back and obviously be cool and calm about it and like showcase that, yeah, I did it. Showcase the power that he holds.
That's exactly what he does, yeah.
And that's exactly what he does in this season. And he gets even more power hungry, even more desperate. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good word for his arc this season. Very desperate for power, but also very strategic. He had that, one-on-one with Criston Cole earlier in the season that gives birth to the Rook's Rest plan. And since his victory loss at Rook's Rest, he has become Prince Regent. He's been even more chaotic than before he was at this place of power, which is very interesting. Like again, they always talk about how the Iron Throne, it's like ravenous. It turns people, it breaks people down. Like we saw with the Viserys scenes and the visions. This is a power that Aemond really wanted. Now that he got it, he just seems to be all over the place, not even caring for the people within him in terms of like his mother, King's Landing itself. In this episode, we learned that he closes the ports, and like he is really trying his hardest to get the people not to like him. And outside of that, his own family is starting not to like him with Helaena and Alicent. And we see him burning the sharp point here, which is again all just fueling how his burning desire, his burning desperation is really going to crumble him eventually.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite arcs, I guess, of this episode and like the season as a whole. I think it's not like super in your face, but like if you've been paying attention, it's there. Like I really love how, and this connects also to what Alicent does later in the episode, but this connects to how Aemond, Aegon, Helaena, maybe not Darren, like they all grew up with this idea in their head that if they didn't fight for the throne, that Rhaenyra was going to come in and kill them all for it. Even though that's an idea, a lie that Otto planted on Alicent, that Alicent then later on planted on her children.
It's taking root.
Yeah, it's taking root, and now that idea, that concept is like an actual reality, not just for like the actual children, but also for Rhaenyra, as we see later in this episode. So I love how like that back and forth between Alicent and Aemond, because yes, like Aemond is clearly in the wrong here in the way that he's acting, but at the same time, what exactly did you expect was going to happen after you told this kid for his entire life that this was exactly what he had to do in order to just live? And I love that back and forth between like those two, and then Helaena being kind of like the middle, like the child at the corner, kind of like being afraid. Like I really like it.
It's so good, and like you said, this is why this show is so complex and interesting to talk about, because like Aemond isn't necessarily wrong, like you said. He's doing all this to protect his birthright, and essentially he's correct. But also, as we talked about, and as the show itself has talked about, Rhaenyra is the rightful ruler. That's why she's trying so hard to get on that throne. Which the vision, we'll talk about Daemon's vision, but is she actually going to get on the throne quicker than I realized? That's very interesting. I hate you, Edgar. But again, guys, non-book reader, if this is your first time watching, Edgar has read the books. But yeah, so that was interesting. But yeah, go back to Aemond here versus Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra's coming. We know that. He now knows that with multiple dragons, he's scared that this throne, which gives him legitimacy, which gives him power, is very similar to Jace in terms of like the dragons give Jace, being a dragon rider gives Jace legitimacy in his eyes. For Aemond, it's kind of similar, where the throne, the power, his right as an heir, is what gives him legitimacy, gives him power, and gives him respect. Because as Alicent called him out on it, he just yearned for that respect. He yearned for that love. And contrary to Daemon, who yearned for love and is getting it from Rhaenyra, Aemond yearns for love and respect and is getting it from nobody, because his actions aren't, leading to that. And he's really casting aside those who would be willing to love him, like Helaena and Alicent, his own mother, but he's tossing his mother aside, not even caring what she thinks, and really doesn't care what Helaena thinks either. But at the same time, and this is due to Ewan's great performance, we are still seeing throughout all this chaos and angry, power-hungry aspect of Aemond, we're still seeing that vulnerability, which makes it so cool and so interesting to track his character. Because, like Alicent called him out on it, you're still like a little boy who still feels disrespected about what happened.
Trying to revenge your whatever happened to you and your child.
Your previous insecurities and sins. And yeah, he kind of is. And this throne is a way to do that. So he's trying to defend it because he knows Rhaenyra is coming, and she is. So it's like, oh man, like Aemond's he's like, I'm just trying to defend our kingdom, and nobody seems to want to do that. And he's not wrong, because Alicent wants to get the heck out of there. Helaena doesn't want to be queen. Larys is getting out of there. Who is on Aemond's side here? And the only one person, maybe Criston, might be on his way to death.
He's over here being suicidal.
And he's in Harrenhal being like, we're going to die. And knowing what we know, he might not be wrong. They're going, it's going to be a battle, but like the tides are turning to Daemon's side, and the Dance of the Dragons are not on Criston Cole's side. So again, who is on Aemon's side here? And his social clout is just plummeting. His physical prowess is also plummeting, because while he has Vhagar, Rhaenyra has like 6 dragons now. So where does that leave Aemond? Oh, okay, he's just going to burn cities. He's just going to burn stuff. And Corlys even talks about that. So I'm super, super excited about his arc next season. How far can he fall, Aemond? And I'm so happy with what we got this season. We got a very vulnerable, chaotic, smart and cunning, but again, very sad character in Aemond. He's so complex and brilliantly portrayed in every scene. And I'm so happy. I loved everything about Aemond. What's up, man? How's it going? This is great. I'm so excited for Aemond, and it's great.
Yeah. What was I gonna say about Aemond? Oh, they talk about like Criston Cole and the Greens going up to Harrenhal, right, to the Riverland, something like that. Okay, cool. Again, not because I want to spoil anything because of the books, but like I'm pretty sure like the assumption that Alicent makes and a lot of people around Aemond is that Aemond is going to eventually meet up with Criston Cole at Harrenhal.
And that's the assumption. Like, hey, we're doing this. Aemond's eventually going to come help us out with Vhagar.
Yeah. I wonder. I mean, I know, but like I also do wonder, because we don't really know the details in Fire and Blood. But I do wonder if they meet at Harrenhal, how is Harrenhal going to affect Aemond? Because he's carrying all of this guilt. He's all of the grievances that he's done against his own brother with Aegon, with Alicent, with Helaena, and obviously, and I've thought about this. I haven't said anything until this point because I kind of been trying to like keep it to myself. But like since episode 3, but I've been wondering since episode 3, since Daemon arrived at Harrenhal, once Aemond, if he goes to Harrenhal, is he gonna see like a ghost of Lucerys, and how is that going to haunt him going forward with season 3? And what is his relationship going to? How is his relationship with Alice going to contrast to the one that Daemon had with her? Because they, even though they had their disagreements, they still had a pretty healthy relationship, like friendship. How does a person like Aemond, who feels like lonely and desperate, interact with somebody who is like leagues ahead of him?
He'd be even more initially disinterested than Daemon was.
Yeah, and I feel like this, like his scene with Helaena and the prophecy that she kind of gives him is like kind of like introducing maybe that idea of what we might see in season 3. But
it's so interesting. Oh man, there's a lot to dig in there, because he'd have to take Harrenhal to enter Harrenhal, and I don't know if he's taking Harrenhal. Again, Vhagar is there, but so is Daemon and the dragons. But Rhaenyra has a choice. I think that's the big choice at the end of the episode, to either go to Harrenhal and defeat Aemond there, or just sneak into King's Landing and just become queen there.
I'm pretty sure the implication in the finale is that as the Greens are going to Harrenhal, Daemon is leaving with his army to King's Landing. So by the time that they get there, Daemon is probably not even going to be there anymore.
But wouldn't Daemon clash with them on their way to King's Landing if they're on their way to Harrenhal?
I mean, yeah, maybe, unless they go on sea, but
yeah. We'll have to wait and see. I figured, there's so many complex stuff here. I figured Daemon will be clashing with Aemond, and then Rhaenyra can just swoop in and go to King's Landing while they're clashing. Especially if she has other dragonborns. Like, hey, you guys handle Aemond. I'll go to King's Landing with myself and maybe some other dragons and do that. We can flush out Aemond's dragon and just kill him there while I go to King's Landing and take over. But we'll talk about that at the very end. But it's gonna be harder to take over if Aegon's gone. Her main thing is I need to be legitimate by killing Aegon. If Aegon's out of the picture, it's more of a usurper.
Yeah. We'll talk about it, but I don't think the Alicent and Rhaenyra
plans
truth. I don't think it's gonna. I think it's gonna blow up in their face.
Oh no! I mean, it didn't seem that easy. Nothing in the show is ever that easy. But we saw the vision of Rhaenyra on the throne. I'm like, I thought this whole show was being about her trying to get on the throne, clashing with the Greens, but never reaching that throne. But maybe she does. I have no idea. Yeah, it was just so exciting. But yeah, sticking with Aemond some more here. Let's dig into that sequence with Alicent and them. So he oh man, so much to get into. I'm sorry guys, but like we saw Alicent and Helaena. Helaena initially says like, I don't want to be queen anymore. Alicent's kind of like speechless, but also what I saw was so interesting here is how Helaena, Alicent, she wants to leave. We know that. Helaena doesn't want to be queen. And what I loved was that it was a very good mother-daughter vulnerable moment that we've been hoping for Alicent to get. Earlier this season, I talked about how Helaena wasn't getting talked to by Alicent after, sacrificing her son, Helena's son, Jaehaerys. Yeah. Helaena was complaining, or Alicent was complaining about it, and she felt so bad for Helaena, but they never really talked about it one-on-one together, at least not a lot. But this scene, she finally sees Helaena, also yearns for freedom, and she asks Helaena if she wants to leave too. And Helaena basically is just like,
where to?
Yeah, where to? It's like, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. And we know, given her visions, that like maybe she sees her death, just like she sees Aemond and Aegon's future. Maybe she just succumbs to like, I'm good staying here, which is interesting by itself. Yeah,
I do think a lot of this season, besides like Alicent coming to terms with what she did in season 1 and partially early season 2, it's her learning to like care for Helaena. Not that she didn't in season 1, but I think she's like slowly realizing that she really is in a very similar position that Alicent was in season 1 with Viserys, and it's a position that Alicent put Helaena in by marrying her to Aegon. But I do think that, like, again, like kind of like touching on the meeting with her and Rhaenyra, I think she's been like, whether the show makes it obvious or not, I think she's been thinking a lot about like the whole blood and cheese of it all. And I think and what that kind of thing did to Helaena and what she would have done in her position. Would she actually save Helaena, or would she would have like saved the heir like Aegon? And I think
that's
by the
crazy.
end and I think by the end of this episode, I think she finally comes to the conclusion that duty might have forced me to save Aegon, but I would have probably wanted to do the same and save my daughter. And that's what she does at the end of this episode. And I think that's like, again, like a really cool like way to connect it to the final scenes between her and Rhaenyra, like that conversation of like, hey, basically saying to Helaena, hey, what do you want? And can I do something to kind of redeem myself? And again, like, because this is Game of Thrones and Westeros, do we know if it's going to work out as it should? Probably not.
Probably not.
Which kind of connects to, I think this is said in episode 2 or 3 by Helaena of like, oh, I forgive you. What does that forgive you actually mean? Is it something present, or is it something in the future?
Great point. Yeah, I'm so happy you said that, because that's literally the last note I have in my notes. Scrolling all the way down here, Helaena and Alicent make the same choice. I think that's such a fascinating overall character arc, because I know people are like, oh, nothing happened this season. The Helaena Alicent sneaky comparison of arcs that they have here is very fascinating. Helaena or Alicent really feels for Helaena after everything they've been through, and then for Helaena to make that choice to say goodbye to her own son And then for Alicent to make that same choice at the end, I was like speechless. I was like, oh wow, she heartbreakingly agreed that Aegon would have to go when like put a gun to her head, basically. And I love that choice for Alicent. And I think that culmination is a culmination of like what you said, her overall arc this season of being the walls closing in on her, being closed out of the politics. And we talked about it last week. I think we were kind of right on the money where last week we said she's suicidal, but also she seeks freedom. I didn't expect what kind of freedom we'd get, like her literally leaving. But I did say, because the politics are kind of no more an option for Alicent, she will choose mother. And she's going to be a mother. Now, I expected her to be more of a mother to Helaena and Aegon and try her best with Aemond. Because again, she even going back to the Gawain scene, she felt bad that Darren, her other fourth son, was doing good without her. So this got her thinking about her motherhood. And I think that got her thinking about her motherhood leading up to caring so much about Helaena. Now, what I didn't expect was that she was willing to see Aegon die as well. But I think that part is just like she craves for freedom so much. And while she does care for Aegon, she was crying about it. She does realize if Aegon's out of the picture, her freedom can really be established.
I think it's almost like also like a mix of like, yes, it is too late, like she said in episode 3, like in the meeting at the Scepter. But also there's something that can still be done. And unfortunately for her, like the thing that she can still do is sacrifice one of her own in order to like save the rest.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what isn't getting talked about is like Aemond. And I think she tries with Aemond. She tried when she put her hand on him last week or 2 weeks ago when she got rejected out of the council. And then again this week, she has that heated exchange with him when he tries to get Helaena to come bring up Dreamfire and go to war with him to Harrenhal. She declines, Helaena declines, and then Alicent really sticks up for her, saying like, are you really that committed to sacrifice one of your own kin to achieve this win in battle? Like, really? Are you seriously doing this? And he's very resolute, but he eventually takes the L and leaves. So I loved Alicent sticking up against Aemond there. But yeah, she is choosing mother. She is choosing that freedom role that she really wanted, that she really craves. And again, that's what makes that last scene so powerful. It's goofy. Her making her way to Rhaenyra. I assume that wasn't in the books, by the way. Her meeting Rhaenyra.
No,
I assume.
I mean, like, look, not so much like as a bad thing. I've always thought that the change of making the relationship as friends instead of like evil stepmother, daughter, whatever. I never minded that idea of the show, mainly because like I've seen a lot of people complain that sometimes the tension doesn't feel as hard as it should because you don't really have a dynamic between Rhaenyra and her brothers, like Aemond and Aegon. Like it's very like disconnected, but that's very much how it happens also in Fire and Blood. The conflict itself, like the beginnings of the conflict is literally called the Princess and the Queen, as referring to Rhaenyra and Alicent. It's always been about those two, even if it's not like best friends, like childhood best friends, it's still that relationship.
It's not a sibling thing between Rhaenyra and Aegon and Aemond. So yeah, it was just a very worthwhile scene between Alicent finally sticking up against Aemond there. I just love their heated exchange. So Helaena refuses. Alicent defends her, and then continuing with Alicent, she goes to the Maester and asks, like, "Hey, I need you to help me leave." And that, of course, teases up her eventually leaving to go to Dragonstone with Rhaenyra. But yeah, I want to go to Helaena again, continue with her and Aemond as well, and seeing their next scene together later in the episode, which was also a brilliant scene. Again, I just want to reiterate how great Ewan was in the scene as Aemond and Fabi. I forget how Helena's name.
Fia Saban or Saban? I don't know.
Okay, Fia Saban. She was great, and she comes comes against him, because in the initial argument she just says no, I don't want to go, and Alicent kind of takes over the argument. In this one, she is more resolute than we've ever seen before.
Yeah, she's like very much like standing for herself for the first time, I think, in the show. Yeah,
which is very fascinating. I love this. I was like, me and Jen are like, oh shit, this is good. And
I do like that that her confidence seems to be coming from her dreams, because like it directly cuts from like the vision with Daemon, and like she's like something like a complaint that I've seen about Helaena as a character and her reaction to like her literal child dying in front of her, like the lack of emotion, I guess, is that that it doesn't feel realistic for a mother. But I feel like it does feel realistic for the type of character that they're writing for the show, of like, this person knows way too much, more than anybody else. She knows how this is gonna play out. She knows that she's only like a part of the puzzle, and she knows that she can't change anything. So she's just letting things play out as they do. That's why like the blood and cheese never really bothered me, because of the whole like her having visions. Like, it makes sense that somebody like her would just be like kind of like giving herself up to whatever her destiny is.
That's what makes everything so interesting. The thing she sees, is it like That's So Raven? Can she change the outcomes? She seems like such a passive character. Does she just succumb to what she sees and that's what ends up happening? Or does she have the ability to change it? For example, you know, like you're talking about, maybe she saw ahead what would happen with Blood and Cheese, but did she see Jaehaerys being saved and she makes the choice to take away, to have to pick the daughter instead of Jaehaerys? Like, that's what I'm interested about. Like, does she see things that are for sure going to happen? Or does Helaena, who has the vision to see ahead, can she change the outcome by making her own choice?
Yeah, I think that's what part of the beauty of like, it's kind of like open-ended for you to kind of like put your own input. But like the way that I've seen it, at least that I saw it, it's kind of like inevitable. Like, can you really change the past? Like, even like Game of Thrones, whenever they dare dive into magic of like Bran like trying to change things in the past, but it's like stuff that's already written. Like the whole Hodor thing is like, you can't really change it. It's just like destined to happen. I kind of like see it. Yeah, I kind of see it like that. But also like I've seen a lot of people, like, you know, like in one of the visions that Daemon has, there's like a dead dragon. I've seen a lot of people.
Yeah, what was
that? A lot of people assume that that's just Viserion from like season 7. It doesn't really look like one of the dragons.
It looked like that was in the past.
Yeah, it looks like, I think it's like one of those things where at least we know how this story is gonna play out. So I saw that vision and immediately thought like, oh, that's just one of the many dragons that's gonna die throughout the story of like the Dance of the Dragons, and it's something that has to happen in order for like eventually for Daenerys to like bring dragons back from stone or whatever. So yeah, like I just think it's all about like how it's all inevitable. Like,
yeah. And speaking of inevitability, when Aemond and Helaena are arguing here, Aemond is considerably more vulnerable. Like I mentioned, I think I saw a tear going down his eyes as he's begging Helaena to help him out. And she again is resolute, like we said, and she says, "If you're going to kill me, it won't change your fate." Talking to Aemond, and she mentions God's Eye. Where's God's Eye? Is that Harrenhal?
Yeah, it's by Harrenhal. Yeah.
So because Jalen was like, "Where's God's Eye?" I was like, "I think it's God's Wood is where like Daemon sees like the visions." So I assume God's Eye is the sky.
It's like the area, yeah, like
the area. Okay. So that's very interesting, and that's considerably interesting. What was I about to say? I'm like the guy connecting dots, because Alice teased Daemon's death,
dying on the God's Eye,
dying in the God's Eye, and now Helena's teasing Aemond's death, also dying in the God's Eye. Are these two going out together? I don't want Daemon losing to Aemond. We see him drowning in this vision as well. I'm like,
that was totally big time for sure.
I'm losing it, guys. I have no idea what's gonna happen. I'm like, I always envisioned, and I said this from the beginning of the freaking season and later on in the end of season 1. It's like Daemon and Aemond have been like eyeing each other like big bosses since day one. Since day one. If these two fight, I want Daemon to win. But like, I don't know how he's gonna win. I want him to live. I want him to win and live, not win and just like go out with Aemond. I don't know, but Harrenhal is seemingly here to stay. In terms of like a location, a prominent location, moving on to season 3 and 4, and I'm just excited. I'm like, where is this Aemond and Daemon conflict going to, or how is it going to end? We kind of know where it is now, but we don't know the how, the why, the who, the what, the when, the where. So it's very intriguing. So God's Eye was teased. But then also, yeah, sorry.
No, I was gonna add to that, to the whole prophecy. I will give them credit for like not shying away from like foreshadowing, like just straight up telling you like, oh, these characters are gonna die. Because like that's something, I feel like that's something that Game of Thrones always like kind of like shied away from. Like they, like George had been like teasing the Red Wedding since like I think it was book 1 or 2. Like he doesn't like straight up say like, oh, Rob is gonna die this way. No, but like through like visuals or like, you know, how they're written, like visual cues, visions that Daenerys has, or like other characters that don't even make it to the show, like Patchface, like all of these other characters are having visions of like the Red Wedding, but like you don't really know like the context, so you kind of like brush it away. I really like that the show is like embracing that and saying like, yeah, this is what's gonna happen, but you don't have the context, so just wait.
That's fascinating. Yeah, it's so intriguing with these future visions. And speaking of that, another aside, because I want to get back to the Daemon or the Aemond Helaena stuff, but I think this episode, more so than most, and what made it good for like a season 2 finale, we got a lot of references that, yes, House of the Dragon is a bridge between like the past of Aegon's conquest to present day Game of Thrones. In terms of a lot of this was about them cementing how they are just part of a story. They will inevitably die. Daemon says that to Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra kind of agrees, like, yeah, we have to do our roles as our parts in the story. It feels very meta, but also very fitting. And the same thing with Aemond. It's like, yeah, Aemond will eventually die. Early in the season, Daemon, this is where you die. A lot of death is foreshadowed in this finale, in this season overall. And again, it's just teasing how the tragedy of the Targaryens, we'll get to that, I think is very prominent with Daemon's vision. How, once again, we went on a tangent about it a couple weeks back, but I want to reiterate it for this episode as well, about how the tragedy of Aegon's dream, the tragedy of what Daemon sees, which is basically Aegon's dream, the future of like the White Walkers, winter is coming, we have to do this, we have to do that. It's like, it's not good. It's heroic when it's like, yeah, I'll fight for Rhaenyra, but also it's bad because war is inevitable, war is coming, war has happened already, and it's just going to lead to the downfall of everyone involved.
Yeah,
it's so interesting.
Yeah, like you mentioned, like we've talked about like Aegon's prophecy in the show before, but like one of the things that I love about the context that it provides, the show to both Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire, the books, is that it really does add context to why a lot of Targaryens make a lot of drastic decisions that may seem like madness to like an outsider, but like within the context, it's like, yeah, I can see why you would think that killing all of these people was a good choice to end and to get to your end goal of fulfilling the prophecy, but like you're not the one who's supposed to fulfill it. Exactly.
But in the present tense of these characters, I understand everyone's plight so well. Like I just said earlier, I understand Aemond's, even though he's going about it through madness and unhinged behavior, I understand why he wants to defend it, because he feels like he earned the spot through his own means, burning Aegon. But also, like, he feels like will be a good ruler. And Rhaenyra is his biggest threat. So he's doing all this to go against Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra as well, we know as an audience, is the rightful heir. She should be on the Iron Throne. She shouldn't be having to do this war. But it's what's placed upon her. It's the big burden that's placed upon her, but just one of many burdens. Because the burden to fight her own kin is placed upon her, but also with Aegon's dream, the burden of the Targaryen legacy is placed upon her. And she can't escape it. We can complain about how it is a tragedy and it's like, they shouldn't be doing this, but like, what else can they do? It's like Rhaenyra can't just be like, come at me, Aemond, I won't do anything. She has to do what she has to do, but it's also like, their individual decisions lead to their downfall. It's so complex, so hard to capture. But yeah, that's why it makes the show so good. But also, back to Aemond and Helaena real quick. Helaena mentions a wooden throne for Aegon. Aegon will be on a wooden throne, and you would be a God's Eye. Wooden throne. What do you think that means? Wheelchair, maybe?
Yeah,
I
think that's the most straightforward answer.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's what I saw on Twitter. So I was just
I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon in terms of, because like they're very much making it seem like Aegon is gonna recover for a brief sort of time, but he might get back in a wheelchair at some point. But
exactly. So yeah, again, that's the last we see of Helaena this season, and I think she was really good this season. We got a lot more of her this season than last season, and I've always been a fan. Me and Dylan, both my brother, like we've always been a fan of Helaena. I like again how resolute she was and how she doesn't want to be queen, admitting that to Alicent. Alicent really wanting to help her out in particular was very good. Aemond continues to be unhinged. Can't wait to see what's next for him. And before we go back to the Blacks and Daemon's dream and stuff like that, Aegon. Aegon and Larys real quick because we don't see much of them. But yeah, Larys, we were kind of wondering what Larys really wants to do with Aegon here in this season, and especially in this episode. He's been wanting Aegon to recover very fast, and we're like, is he doing this out of personal reasons? Because of that one beautiful one-on-one scene where Larys really talks about his disability,
the monologue
in connection to Aegon's severity, for lack of better words. And I'm just curious here. I'm like, okay, what is he doing this out of like personal reasons? Doing this meaning him wanting Aegon to get out of there, knowing that Aemond's going to kill him. They both know it's going to happen. So I'm just like, is he doing this out of personal reasons? Like, he wants Aegon to live? Or is it like strategy because he knows Rhaenyra has to kill Aegon to get like legitimacy in the kingdom?
I think it might be a mix of everything, but I think Larys pretty much knows that Aegon is his one and only avenue to get to power. Whether what kind of power Larys actually wants is still very unclear. It very much seemed like he wanted to be hand of the king, but then Aemond kind of like humiliated him. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's a matter of like, this is the only guy in this family that I could probably manipulate because of how weak he is right now, and two, how like simple-minded he is in a sense. Like nobody really ever gave Aegon the attention to like actually educate him on like all of these like political matters, and I think Larys sees that and he's like, okay, yeah, I could probably puppeteer this guy into doing whatever I want. What that is, still not fully clear, but we're getting there.
And that's my question. I'm like, Aegon, yes, it's kind of like his ticket to power. But Aegon even says, like, my you-know-what is shriveled up. I am, like, half burned. What power does Aegon have, even if he survives Rhaenyra's wrath? I'm like, okay, Rhaenyra can't kill Aegon, so she can't come to the throne fully legitimately by killing Aegon. But also, what power does Aegon have, even if he survives? Like, what if Aegon comes back like 5 years later, like, hey, I'm the rightful king? What can he do? He has no power. Nobody likes him still besides Larys. What's Larys's and Aegon's eventuality? What will we see of them in season 3? I'm kind of nervous because, again, I mentioned Rhaena's like lack of compelling arc, and I hope they can keep Aegon and Larys, even if they go off to, I think they mentioned Bravos or something like that. Bravos, Pentos, wherever Aegon and Larys go, is it going to be a compelling or interesting watch? I'm not really sure. Does this happen in the books, by the way? Does Aegon dip in the books? I can't hear you.
It is implied that Larys helps him escape King's Landing before a certain sacking happens. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just like, what happens? What's Aegon going to do? What's his big, like, narrative moving forward? I liked a lot of what Aegon did overall this season. Similar to Aemond, Aegon last season was very much like the dick of the family. Like, sorry for the cussing, but like he just wasn't. He wasn't very like vulnerable. Likeable. Yeah, he was mean-spirited. He was bullying the strong kids. He was bullying Aemond. And then he gets like forced to be the king by Otto and them. And then he gets kind of like his legitimacy, his power there. But also this season, we see him being a lot more vulnerable. His arc was basically that of being a quote unquote pretender. He felt like he wasn't worthy of the throne. He would never say that, obviously, but just through the visual language of the season, he felt like he was kind of faking it, wasn't a good ruler, and just wanted friendship from the people that he was kind of assigning, like from the Kingsguard, who eventually go to the wall. But it's like he kind of was trying to find respect out of anybody else besides his family because his family didn't respect him. And now he leaves his family. He leaves it all behind. So where does that leave him going into the next season? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah.
I'm interested if somehow in between all of this mess, Larys manages to get that piece of information that Maester Orwell helped Alicent to go to Dragonstone. And like obviously Larys would never be able to like, well, I mean, maybe not ever, but like he wouldn't really necessarily be able to know what actually happened between them in that meeting. But I do wonder if that could be like a start of like kind of like Larys turning Aegon against Alicent of like, hey, your mom did this thing. What do you think about that? Does that seem like something like somebody that cares about you would actually do?
Wow.
And I mean, obviously we know what Alicent says to Rhaenyra, what she offers in return, but
yep.
I am very interested in how that's going to play out because again, not that I want to spoil how the story ends, but I have been thinking lately about how interconnected Aegon, Alicent, and Rhaenyra's like end game could be. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, how do these storylines? How are they going to combine again? Because again, Rhaenyra is on like, I got to kill Aegon now, or at least she's offered the possibility of killing Aegon. But now Aegon's gone, so that's kind of already we know. Rhaenyra doesn't know that plan is kind of out of the window in terms of going to King's Landing and killing Aegon. Will she still go to King's Landing, or will she go back to Harrenhal and defeat Aemond once and for all? We'll have to wait and see. So yeah, I'm very compelled by that. And sticking with King's Landing just a little bit, Aemond earlier mentioned how he's closing up the ports. All the people hate Aemond. I mentioned how people hate Aemond. His family hates Aemond. He's going unhinged. But if Aemond dies at Harrenhal, isn't the problems of King's Landing, aren't those going to fall on Rhaenyra now? So I'm very curious to see how the people react to Rhaenyra as a ruler if she gets there compared to Aemond and Aegon.
You also have to keep in mind that just because that prophecy, I guess, it's on the table, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen right away in season 3. It could.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen.
It could still happen way later in the story.
Yeah, as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Is this the end of the show?" But no, the end of the show has to feel. I feel like the end of the show, like I just mentioned previously, the end of the show is going to be about all these deaths. Rhaenyra's dead, Aemond's dead, Aegon's dead. I don't know who's going to live and die, or I don't know who's going to live. But I feel like we already know who's going to die. But it's like, I don't feel like the show can end with her getting the throne. But now that we see it already so soon, I just feel like we're going to see it sooner than expected. Probably beginning of season 4, after this whole total war. And maybe season 3 as well. Maybe halfway through season 3. We'll see how long this war lasts. But yeah, so that was that was Aegon. I think that's everything basically for King's Landing.
Do you want to discuss Criston Cole's quick scene real quick?
Let's do that. Yeah, I really liked Criston Cole this season. You know, despite people being like, "Oh man, Criston," he was.
Rightfully so, but
yeah, he's a good character to hate, and I really liked this scene. Kind of summarizes his arc pretty perfectly, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah.
I thought it was great performance as well. Gawain calls him out. Started off by saying like how he effed Alicent. Criston doesn't deny it.
All I could think about that scene was like, hey bro, like a little bit quieter, please.
Yeah, literally everybody in the camp turns around and just standing around just watching. It's kind of like Mos Eisley. Everybody just like stops and watches. But yeah, this was brilliant performed by Criston. And I think the main crux of this is Criston's whole monologue, which was very poetic and very interesting. And I think the main crux of it all is he has been like he says, to start it off, Alicent saved him twice. After murdering the dude during the ball, Alicent saved him. But also, Alicent could have had him beheaded because of his relationship with Rhaenyra. And she doesn't. She keeps him alive. She keeps him with her. And then this season has been all about Criston having that sex with Alicent numerous times. And that's been really getting to Criston, on top of failing to protect Jaehaerys. He feels like he's not very good at his job. He's projecting, as we mentioned earlier in the season. The only thing he's good at is battle, is fighting.
And he's completely broken after witnessing these beasts going after.
Exactly. Just imagine, he tells Alicent, what do you want from this? He's like, I want atonement. He gets atonement by fighting. But if he can't even do that because this is the dance of the freaking dragons, then what's his solution? What's his atonement? What's his will to be whole again? How is he able to atone for these sins if he can't even fight anymore? If he's just marching to his death because he knows he is nothing compared to the might of dragons. I think that's the sadness in Criston Cole's whole being right now, is that he feels like he's worthless and he can't even rise above it anymore because the dragons are so insurmountable in his eyes.
Yeah, and I think it's very beautifully contrasted with him early this season, of him being yeah, let's use the dragons. Fuck yeah, it's gonna be very easy. The whole, again, we could discuss during the Rook's Rest episode. On paper, it's a good plan, but once everything goes to shit because of Aegon pulling up, everything changes really quickly. This is not something that you can control. Once the dragons dance, there's no stopping to it. And I still think about those visuals in the battlefield of his walking around and he kind of moves the soldier and it's just goes into pure ashes. It's incredible. But yeah, I'm very interested in how he's going to develop in season 3, because where do you go from here? Are we gonna see maybe some kind of redemption arc? I don't think so, but where exactly do you take a character that is this broken? Do you break him even more by putting him in through more through the battlefield, or what exactly can you do? This is one of those, because I know where his story ends. I know how a lot of people that Googled it, everybody knows where his demise goes to. But
you're like Helaena, you see the visions.
Yeah. No, but there's not a lot of in between of his headspace. So that's something that I'm interested of what the writers are gonna explore with him in season 3 and now 4.
What's fascinating is Criston and Aemond started the season off kind of on a high note. Aemond becomes Prince Regent. He was respected by the council for a bit, or at least the council was threatened by him. And then so Aemond gets to his position of power. Criston gets his whole nickname, King. What did he say? King Elevator? Kingmaker. Kingmaker. And he was doing some good job on the field. But then both those characters, Aemond and Criston, get a huge fall from grace. Aemond is now completely unhinged and chaotic and unpredictable. And Criston is now broken. Where does that leave them going into season 4? Is Criston going to continue his broken nature? Is he going to find some kind of win in the field of battle? And is it for Aemond? What's next for him? There's threats on all sides, both within his family, outside of his family, from the own people of King's Landing. Where are these characters going to go? Are they just going? My prediction is they're just going to continue falling, committing more errors on their way to their own deaths, which is so tragic, but also very interesting for these characters. So yeah, where do we go from here? Do we go from Daemon? Do we go from the Dragon Seeds?
We can discuss those Dragon Seeds real quick. I think it's just mostly just kind of high school drama between those
good stuff. And it leads to some great Jason Baylor stuff as well. So the Dragon Seeds, I think, starts off with the feast here, all showcasing his lack of composure, basically. And this is just for overall in this finale. he has a lack of composure, lack of like honor, and just respect to Jace.
Like we talked about last week when we were saying about how like once you claim a dragon kind of transform you, and it doesn't necessarily mean for the best. I think for Olf's case is gonna be like his arrogance is just gonna grow even more, like how we saw him in his like introductory scenes where he's just like such a big mouth of like, oh yeah, I'm this, I'm that, I'm the brother of Daemon and Viserys Targaryen, whatever. Like now all of that is gonna be elevated up to 11 because he has a dragon.
For sure. And we talked about it last week. It's like Hugh seems loyal, Adam seems loyal, but Ulf doesn't. I thought it was a very interesting thing we talked about last week, where it's like there's a possibility that Ulf is so unpredictable, so disrespectful, he might not be fully loyal to Rhaenyra, which is an interesting storyline.
I love that line that he has with Rhaenyra of like how does it go? It's something about like them, about her making them knights, and her about her trying to make them do something for her, and he's like, well, if you want me to do it, making me a knight first.
Make me a knight then. It's kind of like a callback. It's like knights at the table should be very respected and very respectable. And he's like, making me a knight then. It's like, who do you think you're talking to? Like, if I was Jason, I'd be like, I'm going off on him.
Full on Will Smith on him.
Full on Will Smith. Who do you think you're talking to? And yeah, I love this. And this was a great tease for Ulf's unpredictability next season. Rhaenyra may be on top, but I get the feeling that Ulf is just another sneaky problem, maybe. She just has so many dragons, not everybody can be completely loyal to her. I don't know if he's going to side with the Greens. It doesn't seem like it. But even if he doesn't side with the Greens, he doesn't side with the Black, he's just still a chaotic agent with a free nuke under his belly in Silverwing. So it's like, it's just another problem that she might have to deal with, that she shouldn't have to deal with, but you never know. Hugh, though, seems pretty loyal, pretty locked in. Same thing with Adam, which is very interesting. It just seems to be Ulf.
Yeah, Adam is for sure like the most loyal out of the three, because even like Hugh does seem to have like more like manners. And there's morals, there still seems to be like a part of like reluctance, like how when Rhaenyra asked him like, oh, we're gonna go to this place and we might have to take it by force, like Lannisport, and Hugh and Baela are like, oh, you want us to kill people, and like I know that this is supposed to be like an anti-war story, but like people. You're in war. What do you expect you're gonna do?
Yeah, exactly. But the way Rhaenyra phrased it seemed like they were innocent. Like is she saying, was her plan there to go to like Old Garden, whatever it's called, Old Town
and burn it? I think. I mean, what I could be that, but I think what I got it from is like go to those places, take it by force, so like the enemy can like retreat to their castle.
Oh.
Because like Old Town is the home of the High Towers, Lannisport, and like Casterly Rock is like the home of the Lannisters. So yeah.
So she's not going to do like what Aemond did with whatever point, Sharp Point. She's not just going to go over there and just burn it.
I would imagine not, but I don't know why Hugh and Baela would immediately jump to that conclusion.
Yeah,
because like taking it by force doesn't necessarily mean burning it to the ground.
Everything to the ground.
It just means taking it.
Okay, because I was like, okay, we saw Aemond just go off on Sharp Point and just like burn it because he was mad. It's like, could Rhaenyra be doing a similar thing? Is this leading to everybody's wanting Rhaenyra to be more madness oriented? Is that like a tease for that? I don't know. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, you're right. Hugh does seem reluctant to be like fully active in the battle in terms of like things that he has to do. That could be his way out. Also, he does have a family. That could be another factor as well, where Baela's locked in because this is her family. Hugh has a whole other family. Even though his daughter died, he still has a wife who might have just left him. So we don't know. So yeah, Hugh and Ulf are characters to look out for. It could be minor hurdles for Rhaenyra and Daemon, we shall see. But I did like it. And again, they go off on Jace, or at least Ulf goes off on Jace earlier. We cut to Jace and Baela, which is, again, I was telling Jalen, like, I really wanted more Baela and Jace, and I'm glad we got it. You know, it's very funny. It's very, like, YA, the way he's just, like, pouting, and she has to, like, cheer him up. Like, I love scenes like that. I just, wish we got more. between them. So again, we wanted more Jace and Baela, and we got more Jace and Baela, and that was great to see them cheering each other up.
One minor detail, though, that I do want to discuss before we move on to maybe Harrenhal, which is what directly follows after this. I do think that I get that Rhaenyra is trying to protect Jace and her children, but I think it's also kind of a bad idea to just like keep ignoring Jace, because I feel like that's gonna push him to do very drastic things in season 3. Like even like the discussion that Jace has with Baela, like it ends with like, if you're so worried about being seen as a bastard, prove yourself. It's good advice, but Jace might not take it as like, he might take it to an extra step. And like when Rhaenyra asks Adam to go with her to Harrenhal instead of somebody like Jace,
I noted that too. I was like, oh, why? Yeah.
Like I feel like again, like you're making this guy feel like less, and you might push him to do something drastic. And there's a lot of battles coming next season. So what exactly are you gonna like? What exactly are you gonna do? Like, you can't stop this kid from like just sitting around.
We already know Jace is capable of just doing whatever he wants. He went straight to the bridge with the was it Greyjoys or
the phrase?
The phrase. He goes to the phrase, makes a deal, and it worked out. But like his next move, moving outside of what Rhaenyra wants, might also not work out. And yeah, I think that's a good point, man. I think a good culmination of Jace's arc this season, I thought, was pretty solid. I loved his relationship with his mom this season. Really, they are kind of both in situations of not being able to leave Dragonstone. Rhaenyra can't leave because she's like the queen and it's too dangerous. But it's also, she's putting that same onus on her son. It's too dangerous. I don't want to lose you. So you also have to be miserable like me and to stay in Dragonstone. Both of these characters, Rhaenyra and Jace, don't want to be so passive. They want to do something. But we've seen Rhaenyra move. She, moved to King's Landing, talk to Alicent. She goes to get sea smoke. She went to go get Daemon this season. She left numerous times to go look for Luke earlier on as well. But every time that happened, Jace had to be stuck inside. And they did have a great conversation halfway through the season where they can be so vulnerable with each other. And he's like, I just wanted to do something. And she's like, I want to do something too. It's like, you see how I'm feeling, Jace? That worked out for them. They got on the same page, the Dragon Seas, etc. But you're right. Now at the very end, he still was left behind with these unhonorable Dragon Seas and Ulf. It's just like he can't be sitting idly by once total war happens. Hopefully he doesn't get killed off, because I can't imagine like him dying and then her losing both sons. That'd be so tragic for Rhaenyra. But it's inevitable, because I feel like all these characters are going to die. I don't know who's going to live. So it's going to be interesting to watch. That's a good point that you made there. Because I did note that, like, Jace has to stay again. Why couldn't he go see his own father, in Daemon? Stepfather, in Daemon. Like, why does it have to be Adam?
I feel like a reason could be argued that he's like the heir. Yeah, hold the fort, like you're in charge. But like again, like Rhaenyra doesn't really like present it as that. It almost presents it like not a punishment, but like, yeah, just stay behind. Like, don't do nothing. Kind of like what Alicent was doing with Aegon earlier this season.
Exactly. It seems like she's going out to dinner and just like, hey, Dave, or say, you can't leave with me. Just hold down the house. Just hold down the house while I'm gone. And it's just like, we'll see. That's a great point, man. I'm very curious to see what Jace does, because he is young, and these young kids are very rash in the Game of Thrones. Yeah. So yeah, but you're right. She does leave, and she goes to Harrenhal, and we got a lot of interesting stuff happening prior to her going to Harrenhal. Daemon now has a huge army. He's walking around very happy. We finally see the MFer Alfred Broom make his way to Harrenhal. And he was supposed to deliver a message to Daemon, be like, hey, tell Daemon to remember our last conversation. Easy. You have one job. But no, this sexist a-hole comes to Daemon, and he's basically like,
let's do some treason.
Let's do some treason. We got all these people. You're already wanting to go to King's Landing. And by the way, I was kind of confused at first. I was like, we had this whole arc for Daemon. And I said last week, I was like, now Daemon has all these visions. What's he going to do with it now? And he was getting ready to go to King's Landing. I'm like, are you really going to King's Landing? But part of me feels like he was never going to go to King's Landing. He was always, regardless of seeing this new vision. I saw some hate online that like, oh, this vision was just to push him this way. I feel like he was always going to do that.
He was always going to go that way. It just like kind of like reaffirm his status.
Yeah, exactly. I think what I put here, the past scenes gave him understanding. This vision gives him purpose and clarity. Maybe too much clarity. But yeah, and yeah, I think he had the understanding. I feel like I was kind of taken aback because I thought all these people were going to go to King's Landing without Rhaenyra. But by the end, it seems like it was always a purpose of bending the knee to Rhaenyra. He just didn't expect Rhaenyra to come to him. But yeah, man, I was like, this guy, Alpha Broom, is really trying to do some treason. I love good old my boy Simon Strong, kind of like pulling a Plagueis and being like, what's going on here? Like something sus is going on, and he instantly ratted that out to Rhaenyra.
Again, like going into the whole magical aspect, I do love that the conversation that Alfred and Daemon have is like at the Godswood, and like in the background you can hear like a voice very like very faintly you can hear it say like traitor. And
wow.
And like obviously they're referring to like Alfred, and you do have to wonder if that line of traitor is it referring to him presenting this idea to Daemon, or is it something else later in the future that he's gonna do against Rhaenyra?
Oh, I thought I want him to get the axe. I thought when he was coming to Daemon with this, I thought Daemon's gonna be like, okay, cool, I'll entertain you for now. As soon as Rhaenyra comes in, this guy needs to leave. He ain't loyal. Let me cut off his head. Do we really need him? I thought Daemon was gonna do that first thing.
Yeah, and the reason why I say that also, like, of like, is it just the implication of him trying to commit treason with Daemon, or is it something else? The reason why I say that is because, like, as like the whole celebration breaks out in Harrenhal with Daemon like declaring for Rhaenyra, there are a few shots of him like kind of like looking like to the ground, kind of like pissed off. Like that kind of like Daemon played him.
Daemon played him. He didn't want to do this, but it's like, what power do you have, mother effer? It's like you have no power. You have no standing. Just go with them. Like, yeah, you don't want to like Rhaenyra, but you also obviously, like he says, doesn't like the Greens. So it's like, what do you want to do? You want to support Daemon, but Daemon's obviously with Rhaenyra. So what is it that you do here? So we shall see. But yeah, they did narrow in on him at the end there, bending the knee. I thought that was more for comedy. Because like this guy tried to do something and now he has to bend the knee. But we'll see. But yeah, Daemon is, again, I think he was fully understanding, given his past scenes with Rhaenyra, Jaehaerys, all that kind of stuff, or Viserys, all that stuff. But the vision that he gets later that night really gives him the clarity to move forward and cement his loyalty. And speaking of that, let's finally get in to that vision here. As let's see here, Daemon wakes up. And he sees Alicent at his bedside. Alicent says, because of what you've seen, you are now ready to basically see this vision, which that was a cool thing. Like, he kind of leveled up enough to be able to see the vision where he wasn't leveled up enough at the beginning of season 2. He was too hot-headed. And he follows her out to the Godswood, and there's a creature there. What is Children of the Forest?
No, it's a green man. Like, quick explanation. Once the first man and the Children of the Forest, once like they made like their pact to like make peace. At the end of the war that they had with each other, they constructed this like organization that is called like the Green Men, and they kind of like, it's kind of unclear if they're actually like creatures with like antlers or if it's just like a helmet, but their role is supposed to like protect the weird trees from being cut off, like because like the first man like used to like cut them off because they kind of like saw them as like this weird ritual thing. So after the pact, they kind of like make that deal of like, hey, we're gonna put into effect this like group of people that are gonna protect these trees, and that's what that creature was.
Interesting. So you said it was Children of the Forest and the humans coming together and then creating an organization of the Green Men. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So is that a tease for future seasons?
I mean, It kind of just, to me, like it just seems more like Ryan Condal playing with the magical aspects of the world more than anything else. It's not like anything that is gonna affect the plot or the characters. Really, it's more like to add a little bit more like mystical elements, I guess. Again, like going back to like Game of Thrones, not really fully committed to the magic. Like the show kind of trying to like bring the magic back in.
Bring the magic back. So are the Green Men mentioned in Fire and Blood? Is that how you know all that? Or is it,
well, it's like in the main series and also like the World of Ice and Fire type of things. Yeah.
Cool. How big is your Game of Thrones library? How many reference books do you have?
I mean, I have them all.
That's awesome. So yeah, I like seeing that. Alice Rivers says like basically hold up your hand to the tree here. God's
bleeding. Yeah.
It's bleeding, and let's dig into everything we see in this vision. So time flows. We see a young man. Who is this young three-eyed raven?
Yeah, it's the you know him in the show in Game of Thrones as the three-eyed raven, but his nickname when he was young was like Blood Raven because of the birthmark that he had on his cheek.
I saw that.
Which he doesn't have in the show, but again, like this just seems like Ryan Condal trying to be a little bit more close to the books.
Okay, so we see the Blood Raven. So is the Blood Raven the one showing Daemon this basically?
It might be, but it also like at this point, Blood Raven is not born yet. But it could be one of those cases where
it could be Blood Raven from the future.
Yeah, kind of maybe.
Craziness.
Raven
because they then show like we'll get to it. They show the White Walkers, but I'm like, the guy in Game of Thrones, Three-Eyed Raven, dies before the White Walkers invade.
Yeah. Like Blood Raven is like he's gonna be alive. He should be around during the Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same guy that's playing him.
Oh wow! And this is just like, hey, come on set for us, and then we'll show you, and we'll see you next season or next year. That's cool. So yeah, we see a younger version of him. We zoom up to one of the bird's eyes.
It's kind of like a dire wolf, like running in the. At least it seems like it's a dire wolf running like across the forest. And
the forest, and then we see the
White Walkers. It's funny because like everybody's like, "Oh, is this supposed to be the same guy as the Night King?" It's like, bro, like it's not. It's probably not even meant to be the same timeline as like not timeline, but like the same like present time as Game of Thrones, because this could very easily be a vision from the past because there's been a previous long night before the one that we know.
I immediately thought it was a vision of the past because me and Jen were like pausing it to go through it, and I'm like, the Three-Eyed Raven died before like the White Walkers became like super, prominent, powerful. So like that moment could be from the previous long night, which ironically was one of the rumored pilots or not even rumored, confirmed pilots that was going to happen.
Canceled.
That was canceled, exactly. So it could be from a previous long night, and that makes a lot of sense. But either way, the threat of the winter is coming is real. What else do we see there? We see a red comet.
That's supposed to be the red comet that flies through the sky in both the books and the show in Game of Thrones after Daenerys gives birth to the dragons. It's supposed to be like an omen to the prince who was promised, Azor Ahai, all of that shit.
Okay, awesome. I totally forgot there was a comet stuff. I haven't rewatched season 1 in a minute. I watched season 1 once, and then I watched it again leading up to season 7 or 8. And so yeah, but so then we see, which one do we see first? I think we see Dany first, being kind of like seemingly hatched, but like basically we see Dany coming out of the fire with her 3 dragon eggs, her 3 dragons. And by the way, her 3 dragons / dragon eggs come from what dragon from this show again?
I wish I could tell you, but the writers don't seem to be in agreement, because I remember in episode 3, the same director from this episode, Jita, she was like implying that that Daenerys' dragons came from Syrax, which is Rhaenyra's dragon. But then like a week later, Ryan was like, "Oh well, that doesn't really like that doesn't necessarily mean that it's Syrax. It could be Dreamfire. Like we just trying to like make it purposely big for fans to have fun with the theories." Or
Helena's dragon, Dreamfire.
Yeah, Helena's. Okay. Because that's in the books. This is during Jaehaerys' reign. Basically, one of Jaehaerys' daughters kind of has like an affair with this female pirate. And eventually they have like a lesbian breakup, let's say. and the pirate steals 3 dragons and goes to Essos and goes to, I think, Ashai. I don't remember where. And like in the book, George kind of tries to make it seem like open-ended, but it's very much clear that those are supposed to be Daenerys' dragons because she takes them and she allegedly sells them to make a fortune for herself. So
Wow.
the what's it called? The location of the dragons is kind of kept, of those 3 dragon eggs is kind of kept like vague for you to like kind of make the assumption like those eggs are already in Essos. Daenerys gets eggs that were found in Essos. Like you kind of make those connections. But
How early does Dany get those dragons in season 1? Those dragon eggs? Are they always episode 1?
Episode 1, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So yeah, like hundreds of years later. So again, this is one of those things where like the show doesn't really make it clear. It's kind of like leaving it vague for you to like, decide which canon you want to fit into it. But yeah, like I subscribe to the Dreamfire one because that just seems to me like to be like a cooler, more organic way to get those eggs to Essos than say like, oh, these are just Rhaenyra's eggs.
Yeah. Because yeah, those were Rhaenyra's eggs seem just like, oh, those dragons would just be for the children, the little kids.
Yeah.
But also, okay, so lastly, we see adult Rhaenyra on the Iron Throne, which we mentioned, and I put in my notes here. Will we see that in season 3, or that in season 4, or is that something that will never happen? But I think it will something that is going to happen. She will take control, but does she take control and the show just ends, or does she take control and there's more conflict? I don't know. If she takes control, does that mean Aemond is dead? I don't. There's so many questions going on in my mind right now.
Yeah, the way that I read this entire like series of visions is like a common theme in both the show and the books is that a lot of these characters are doing the things that they do because they're driven by prophecy. Like Stannis is driven by prophecy, Daenerys is driven by prophecy, Bran is driven by prophecy. It's like they're all like justifying their actions through because of like what the prophecy is telling them to do. And I feel like since like Daemon doesn't necessarily, obviously he doesn't know what's gonna happen like in 200 years later with Daenerys and Jon Snow and all of these characters. I wouldn't be surprised if Daemon is seeing all of this stuff and kind of like maybe thinking that Daenerys is actually Rhaenyra trying to bring peace, and that's why like the thing that kind of like pushed like the extra push to like full on like support Rhaenyra, especially because like the very last thing that you see is like Rhaenyra on the throne. So I don't know, like that could be like the way that you can interpret it. But also like we were talking about it earlier with the like the dragon corpses that you see in the show. Like a lot of people have been saying that's Viserion. I don't think so. I just think it's supposed to be like a random dragon from the show that's gonna die eventually down the line.
Yeah, it seems like that's just showcasing the fall of the dragons, the fall of the dynasty.
Yeah, and like also like for us, like obviously Daemon doesn't know this, but for us, like it seems like all of this has to happen in order for Daenerys to be born and for Daenerys to bring the dragons back from the dead to fight the White Walkers. Like the Dance of the Dragons, the tragedy of the Dance of the Dragons has to happen in order for us to get to the main story.
Which goes to Daemon's later comment about like we have to play our part in the story, basically. Like
I love that line of like I'm meant to serve you until death or the end of our story. So good.
Beautiful. Peak. I missed those two together. And yeah, let's jump to that, right? Because I think right after this, it's the next morning, and Rhaenyra appears. Very funny how Rhaenyra appears on Cyrax. It's just whenever dragons park, whenever people park the dragons, it's always so needlessly far away. She has to walk that whole hill up there. Simon has to walk all the way down to greet her. It's very funny. And then she gets there and she sees all these people. And she's like, what's going on here? Is everybody just set to go without me? It's like, is Daemon really trying to betray me? And then we get like a Where's Waldo moment because Daemon's just walking. But you can hardly see where he is. I was like, is that Daemon? Where's he at? Then you see people parting the way, which is very cool. And just this whole sequence is very well directed. Then he makes his way and he basically, like you said here, bends the knee and says Rhaenyra is the rightful ruler. We are under your command. Yeah. And she's kind of shocked by this. And she says one of the most romantic and funny lines, like, leave me, like, if you leave me again and you like go regret it, something like that.
Yeah, leave me again at your own peril, something.
At your own peril, which is so beautiful, so great. I'm like, I need more Emma and Matt in season 3. I cannot wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
And this was great. I love seeing them together again.
Yeah, I also love that they kind of like continue that consistency from season 1, that these two especially let themselves be vulnerable with each other when they're speaking High Valyrian. You kind of see that in the scene. So yeah.
It was just so great. And he says the big words, winter is coming. You sound a lot like my father, she retorts. And that's very good. It's like which is so poetic, right? Like he, throughout these last couple episodes, has been getting so closer to his brother, Viserys. And for her to say, you sound a lot like my father, it just symbolizes how close he is becoming to his dearly departed brother.
Yeah, almost as a sense of validation. And speaking of validation, we've been right about Daemon's arc this entire season, so bravo us. Media literacy,
Media literacy. I'm so happy that it worked out this way. I'm like, this is so good. I'm like, there's no reason to give him all these visions if he's just going to become more chaotic. And when I was taking the notes, I'm like, he was called the Rogue Prince early on, and what's his new nickname now? The Loyal Prince, the Obedient Prince. He's still, of course, he's going to be Daemon. I don't want people to forget that. Like, he is still very much going to be that chaotic, messy character, but his loyalty is fully defined. His understanding of the weight of the crown is fully defined, and his willingness to win at all cost to help Rhaenyra is fully cemented here. And I cannot wait to see what his new arc, his new character arc brings.
Yeah, and also like continuing with what I was just saying is we were right about something, but not the way that we thought it was going to happen. Last week we predicted that Rhaenyra was going to go to Harrenhal and maybe get a vision that would like push her to do what she needs to do for this war. It did happen, but it didn't happen to her. It happened to Daemon.
Happened to Daemon. Yeah, we thought like we can get Rhaenyra talking to Viserys, which would have been very cool. We just want everybody to go to Harrenhal, get crazy visions. Like, let's see what Aegon happens in there. What happened to Aemond in there? Jace, you need a vision. You need an accurate age. Let's go to Harrenhal.
I feel like the other character that would really be needing of a vision would probably be Corlys, of like his children, like basically saying like, hey, you kind of fucked up.
You fucked up. And we'll get to that at the end here. That's really good. Oh, let's get to it right now, basically. Before we get to the Alicent of it all. So yeah, we see Corlys here. I thought this was great. A heated exchange between Corlys and Alyn.
Beautiful dialogue.
Beautiful dialogue. And what I loved about this, it validates everything we've seen leading up to this point between Corlys and Alyn. And what I made a note about was that, like, well, firstly, earlier in the episode, he names his ship after the queen that never was, Rhaenys, exactly, which is a play on the episode title, The Queen That Ever Was, referring to Rhaenyra. In my opinion, stupid title. But yeah, so he's really been about, like, especially becoming Hand, right? In Baela's words, Salt and Sea, he really wants to, ever since her death, respect and follow Rhaenys' wishes. Rhaenys' last words, their last exchange between Rhaenys and Corlys was about these kids. Was about like how, hey, maybe you should, in not so many words, go to your children, respect your children, basically, or maybe even validate them. Those weren't words that Rhaenys exactly said, but she did. But they were talking about those bastard children, Alyn and Adam. And last week we got Corlys not confirming with Adam anything, but giving him his approval, giving Adam his support, which I thought was very nice. And I kind of agreed with you last week in terms of he doesn't have to like validate Adam or legitimize Adam. Yeah. It would have came across as insensitive.
And that's what
kind of what happens here. Exactly. Whereas like he kind of he said, okay, it worked for Alyn. I didn't really, or it worked for Adam, rocky relationship, but I showed him that I approve. And now here he's trying to show Alyn that he approves and trying to help out Alyn here in this situation. But it's coming across as very much insensitive and unwarranted on Alyn.
Almost like fake. Alan calls it out as like, oh, now that your children, your legitimate children are dead, now you want to come and like claim us.
Which was perfect because not everything's going to work out smoothly. My main theory was that like, okay, Adam is now the Dragon Rider. He's going to go to Alan in the finale, legitimize him. He's the heir to Driftmark. And I like that the show is very real with it being like, it's not that easy for Alan. Alan grew up a bastard. That is very hard childhood. And Alan kind of remarks about that, being like how him and Adam really struggled for bread every morning, working from dusk to dawn, basically, to try and get food on the table for them, while Corlys and his family walks on by with furs on their backs. And with them all dead, now you're coming to me? Now you want to worry about my well-being with my job? It's like, what are you doing here?
It's very much a very similar arc as the one that Jace has this season, but the difference is that Jace is still trying, even though he's like the literal heir to the throne, he's still very much trying to come to terms with what it means to be a bastard, whereas Alan already knows what he is, but he doesn't want a reward for it.
Exactly. He doesn't want a reward for it, and he doesn't have that connection like Jace has with Rhaenyra. That's a very great comparison, because Jace is so worried. And he tells Baela that, like, he's so worried about, being a bastard, and they're so disrespectful. And Baela's like, like you said earlier, just prove yourself. And, in a similar vein, Corlys is trying to help out Alan. He's not saying prove yourself. He's saying, like, how he can improve his social standing amongst his men. And again, like you said, it comes across as fake. Like, why are you trying to help me out with my men, with the job that I do well? It's just like, I didn't want your sympathy. I didn't want your assistance. I didn't want any of this. I don't want anything to do with you. Which that was a very honest and raw moment for him.
Yeah, because he didn't need it all his life, but what would he need it now?
Exactly. So I still think eventually Alan and Corlys are going to get on the same page. And maybe, a good conflict really gets you, sympathetic towards somebody else. And I think seemingly we're looking for a Corlys and Alan battle on the water against the incoming triarchy assisted by the Lannisters. That battle on the ships, literally the final scenes, we see Alan and Corlys rowing to their ship. We see the Lannisters, the Lohar, the triarchy on their ships. Seems like we're getting a ship battle, in my opinion. And I think whatever happens there, I just thought of something. Corlys sacrificing his life for Alan. That'd be crazy. Again, guys, I don't read the book, so don't spoil anything in the comments. That'd be crazy if that happens. Or again, Alan, I think, would just become heir to Driftmark somehow. They'll get on the same page eventually in season 3. But it's a storyline that I think not a lot of people liked. All these scenes of Corlys going back to this port and all the Alan and Adam stuff this season. But I think overall, bit by bit, it helped elevate one of the main parts of this season, which is the bastards and this growing tension amongst the dragon seeds and the people in charge. It's very cool.
I think a lot of the issues that people have with it is like very similar to the stuff with Alicent of just being like very repetitive. It's like you're making the same point over and over and over again.
And that's fair.
And again, like, is it good? It is really freaking good. Like, this is like the payoff doesn't feel as great as it does if it were for like the build up. But again, like, I understand the complaint because you could have cut 1 or 2 scenes of those and give it to somebody else, like develop another character with that screen.
This final scene was still hit without some of those scenes. I would agree. But yeah, again, I think like the whole Rhaenys stuff and then him following Rhaenys' footsteps here, very good. Again, didn't work out for Corlys, but it worked out for us because we got a great dialogue, great heated exchange. And speaking of heated exchange, Alicent, surprisingly, I did not expect this. When she went to the Maester, I was like, oh, she just wants out of there. We're going to see her at the end of the season fleeing with Helaena. But no, she goes to Dragonstone, talks to her ex-girlfriend, Rhaenyra. And things get heated. Now, I mentioned to Edgar up top, I didn't take a lot of notes on this scene. I really wanted to rewatch this scene to get the big, emotional capacity of it all. But I think the main thing here is that Alicent, it's a lot of reflection, similar to Criston seeming very down on himself and talking it through with Gawain, basically just lamenting all his actions. Similar thing to Alicent, where she's lamenting her past actions, comparing her past self to Rhaenyra, in this very raw, vulnerable, emotional, and powerful scene, as Alicent pretty much just says, like, she understands what Rhaenyra was doing. She laments how everything is built up to this point. And I thought it was just a very beautiful, very tragic wording from Alicent. Like we all have been saying, it's kind of like she's gotten to terms with her own dilemma. She comes to terms with that, like, she's not making her own decisions. Her freedom is very much lacking, and she wants out. But Rhaenyra, justifiably so, like, claps back against all that. But what do you think about Alicent's words?
I just think overall, like, if you contrast this meetup with the first one that they have in this season, I love just like the reversal of like them being like on their opposite spots of the spectrum, of Alicent being like, it's too late. Wait, it might not be too late. We might still be able to do something. and Rhaenyra is being like, oh, we can do something, to, oh, it's too late. And not only do we see that through the dialogue and the conversations that they have, but we also see it like visually, like those close out shots of the season of Rhaenyra being like trapped in this cage of history and prophecy, and then you cut to like Alicent being on the open, kind of like free, like I like the what I got from that shot and that entire sequence of Alicent trying to like liberate herself is, at least she tried. She tried to, like, at the very last attempt at peace, she tried, and whatever happens next, I don't think it really matters as so much for herself,
for her soul.
Yeah, like at least I did try to save my daughter. At least I did try to put an end to this war. Whatever happens is like beyond my control, but at least I did try at the very last minute.
She was active. She made her own active choice. So when repeatedly throughout season 1, her whole life, as she says, she didn't have a choice in things. And even in things she did have a choice in terms of like going to the Green Council, repeating what Viserys says, the whole succession controversy, like Rhaenyra mentioned, like, hey, you had a choice in doing that. And she's like, she did. But also at the same time, Otto and them were also pressuring her still.
They were going to do it anyway.
They were going to do it anyways, and that isn't like what she says, but also like it's like what we can say, what we can tell, and it's what she feels, especially when she does all these actions for everybody else. And what do they do? What does Aemond do? Kick her out anyway. She hardly got a voice on the council this entire season. So again, it's her at least actively trying to do something. She gets that freedom at the end, overlooking the cliff, like you said. But is this freedom for her going to last? I don't know. I don't think so. That's a tragedy of it all.
Yeah, and okay, we already kind of touched about it earlier, about the whole, like, I'm gonna turn in Aegon in order for you to ascend the throne thing. Obviously, I don't.
That's her plan, right? And
yeah.
Again, like, she wants her to slip into to King's Landing, kill Aegon when Aemond isn't there, and then assume the throne, and that's when peace will happen.
Accordingly, but like, obviously, I think, like I mentioned earlier, I think this was just gonna blow up in their face, because it's pretty like obvious that we're gonna open either episode 1 or 2 next season with a big battle, and whatever happens as an end result of that big battle is gonna affect whatever this original plan was. It's not gonna go smoothly. And B, Aegon is gone. Alicent doesn't know it, and obviously, like, Alicent didn't mean for that to happen, but what does somebody like Rhaenyra on the other side of the war is gonna see that like you came to my house, you proposed this, but you were doing something else behind my back. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Rhaenyra is like,
feels even more betrayed.
Yeah,
because again, she goes there to King's Landing, which already seems like a very crazy image. Rhaenyra finally coming back to King's Landing. Aegon's not there. So what happens next?
Yeah, like the whole meetup was just a trick to get Aegon out of the city. Like I wouldn't be surprised if that's how Rhaenyra sees it.
Good point. And at this point, where does Alicent go? But also, isn't Alicent supposed to be going back to King's Landing to open the gates for Rhaenyra? Wasn't that part of her plan?
Yeah, that is part of the plan. But again, like, how is this plan gonna be thrown out the window once the battle happens? Because I'm pretty sure it's gonna open with a battle. Against the Triarchy. Yeah,
the Triarchy on the water. People, like we saw at the end, people are marching towards Harrenhal. Daemon's at Harrenhal. Aemond could be on his way to Harrenhal. Like, when is that land battle? When's that battle going to happen? Compared to like the water battle, and that's what just has me super puzzled. But yeah, man, I love this scene between them. Both characters burdened, and on this case, the burden is slowly. At least again, we know there's tragedy ahead for Alicent, for both these characters. But at the moment, Alicent is achieving a morsel of freedom that it was taken away from her for a very long time. And the season 2 finale is showing us Alicent making an active choice, a heartbreaking choice with the whole Aegon of it all, and heartbreaking in terms of like not being able to reconcile completely with Rhaenyra when she says, "Come with me," and Rhaenyra is like, she can't basically. But now she's free. She has Helaena on her side. Her 2 sons are still, well, she doesn't know about Aegon leaving. Her 2 sons are just either messy, out in the open, or just unattached to her right now. So it's just, she's trying to get any kind of morsel of freedom, an active choice in her life, and we'll see where that leads her early on in season 3. But again, we mentioned it last week, she's choosing to be a good mother. Even if she can't get any political clout, political standing, she's trying to emotionally free herself, be a good mother to Helaena in particular. And again, we'll see where that goes. And meanwhile, tragically so for Rhaenyra, even though she's on top, she has Daemon. She has her dragons. She now has a choice.
She has purpose, yeah.
She has purpose. And a reconfirmed purpose with Daemon. But now she has a choice. Does she help out Daemon? I think that's a choice, right? I think what Ryan Condor said, like she has 2 choices open to her: helping out Daemon at Harrenhal or following through with Alicent's plan and going to King's Landing, not knowing that Aegon's gone. So what choice does she make? And either way, regardless of the choice that she makes, she is still going to be burdened. And I think that's a great shot of her with those scrolls. She's burdened by knowledge of the future, by the history of the Targaryens is on her back, and just personally, the weight of the realm. She feels like she has to win so the realm could be, united at this point in time.
Yeah,
away from this war.
Yeah, and whatever decision she makes, I think it's going to be like, I think the show is purposely making her seem like she's on top with all of these dragons and armies. But at the end of the day, whatever decision she makes, I feel like it's going to blow up in her face. And it's going to probably end in tragedy. And I think maybe she'll get like a early victory. But emotionally, I think she's going to be down. Because again, like, I think like the whole plan with Alicent is just not going to work out.
Yeah, it's very similar to. I'm terrible, guys. I still haven't finished The Bear season 3. I'm terrible. But
he's going to kill you.
He's going to kill me. I'm sorry. I'm like the Olympics really. I wanted to finish it before the Olympics. Anyways, guys, it's very similar to Carmy in a sense, where it's like Carmy's up top, but then whenever he's up top, it's like he gets burdened by his own actions and his own selfish desires, selfishness. And I think, because everybody's saying, it's not even a spoiler, but like Rhaenyra's madness has been a thing that people keep talking about. And we mentioned last week how the show isn't really showing that much. The show is doing a lot of like good Rhaenyra, but last week we did see her willingly watch hundreds of people die by Vermithor's hands in an effort to get these dragon seeds to fruition. with an early win, but an ultimate loss throughout season 3, could we see her have a fall from grace arc? And with that fall from grace arc, that could connect to what we were saying last week, with her arc being more about like a cultish figure that even Ryan mentioned last week in the behind the scenes episode. That cultist religious figure turned to madness, and we could see that. But like, you know, she does have people by her side: Jace, Daemon, Azaria. So we'll see how that conflicts. Maybe that'll help change things and help out Rhaenyra, because she's still, in my opinion, like a good person at heart. So, but war does things to war. Total war corrupts the best of us. Exactly. And I think, again, Rhaenyra's on top. I like seeing her elevate herself this season. That was a big part of her arc, elevating herself, following Luke's death, following these early losses, losing Rhaenys, losing like a lot of ground to Criston Cole and Aemond. Now she's on top. Now she's a boss. How long will that last? And if it doesn't last, how far will she fall? It seems like overall the consensus that we've been talking about was like Criston, Aemond, Aegon, Rhaenyra are all going to have some fall from grace arcs in season 3 into season 4. Even characters like Daemon, who has elevated himself, has been teased on his death, and Aemond as well has been teased by his death in this episode. So death is coming, fall from graces are coming, and total war is just beginning as war is on the horizon. And yeah, war was on the horizon at the end of season 1. But we saw how season 2 played out. All these characters, how they lamented the start of war, trying to avert it. And I think it was very valuable, you know, as a sum up of season 2, very valuable to see how these characters reacted to the threat of war, to the start of war, and how the early war begins. Early war is very, very complicated. You know, as a history person myself, like the beginning of World War I, it wasn't just straight up like long battles. Like, you know, there was a lot of war of attrition, trench warfare. It was all like bloody at times, but also a lot of stalling and a lot of like political maneuvering. And I think we saw a lot of that political maneuvering and character growth. For example, we can't have season 1 Daemon be the person that season 3 Daemon is going to be, right? We needed to have that arc before we get to the war for Daemon, for Rhaenyra, for a lot of these characters. So,
if season 1 is like the epilogue of this entire story of this war, and season 2 is like the phase 1, let's say, of like the war, of like kind of like characters starting to see the consequences of war and what their actions are going to look like. I think season 3 is going to be like, we know, and we're still going to go for it.
Yeah, putting that into action. What will we see? What will we see from these characters who have grown or fallen? What we see from them when the action ramps up, when we see them actually have to be active in their decisions. We'll see.
And the episode ends with this really cool montage with Ramin going all out on
off. Loved it.
Otto, what are you? Who has you captive?
Oh, we didn't talk about that. Yeah, Otto, my king. I predicted that we'll see him in the finale. I was like, oh, he's going to come in the finale. In the teaser for episode 8, we saw Darren and his dragon coming in. Maybe that was why he was just waiting for Darren. But no, he's not even with them. Do you know what's up? Is this in the book?
No, this is not in the books. I have no idea. My only thought, my first thought was like maybe Larys is involved. But I don't know. Like, I don't really see why Larys would.
I feel like I feel like we would have gotten hinted about like Larys.
Yeah.
Like a
also, what I was thinking, since I know like people in the Reach like are rebelling against the Greens, against the High Towers, maybe like the family of Lyman Bisbury, maybe capture
Bisburys. Yeah. That's a good call. We got that's something that we've gotten teased about. Maybe some like very, very, very casual watcher.
Yeah, very casual. Yeah,
wouldn't be understanding, but yeah, we talked about it. We mentioned it in our little notes here and there for the last 2 or 3 episodes.
It's like a throwaway line, but I think it might come back. Maybe.
It's a throwaway line. The Beesberries are already going against the High Towers in Old Town, or in that region. So it's like they could have captured and let's parse through that. If that is the case, that's a very likely option. That's going to be on like some of the greens to help out Otto, and I wonder who that would be. That could be Aegon, could be heading there, maybe. That could be a clash of storylines there.
Yeah. I could also see like if let's assume that Alicent's plan works out, and Rhaenyra goes to King's Landing and takes King's Landing, and if the Beastberries are with the Blacks and they have Otto and they take it to Rhaenyra as almost like as an offering of like, hey, we did this. What happens to Otto then?
He's getting his head chopped off. So that'd be very good. I'd be very curious. But Aemond versus Rhaenyra had me super excited. Yeah. And Daemon. So yeah, and then again, as all these montages end with the beautiful Raymond track, all these battles are, the chess pieces are on the board now, basically.
Yeah. I know a lot of people are joking, like, oh, it's just like a trailer for season 3, but I mean, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, like, the end of Horizon, the Kevin Costner movie.
Yeah.
But like, and I just want to reiterate once again, like, I've seen a lot of complaints about how we're just ending to the start of a war, just like season 1 was. But season 1 was different. Season 1, it didn't say like, hey, we're going to war now. That's what we thought.
It's
naturally
a family
so.
Tragedy.
But it's a family. Yeah. Exactly, it's a family tragedy first and foremost. And Rhaenyra jumping to war wouldn't have made sense. And I feel like this season really showed the raw steps of how Rhaenyra was like, I just can't go to King's Landing. Even Daemon was like, let's go. But the show expertly or perfectly so said like, this is why they can't just immediately sack King's Landing. These are the things Rhaenyra has to deal with. These are the things Aegon and Aemond have to deal with. The family drama, the family tragedies that they have to deal with before a total war can even commence, despite Luke dying, despite Jaehaerys dying. Overall, very strong season. I can't really...
Not without its flaws, but yeah.
Not without its flaws, but similar to season 1, right? Season 1 had a lot of scenes where it's just like, for me at least, as a casual, I thought it was a very, very, very great season. But like the time skips, some of it was very jarring at times.
Yeah.
And a lot of the characters didn't get a lot of shine in season 1, outside of the same characters that got shine in season 2.
Yeah.
I do think similar flaws.
Yeah, I do think season 1 is a lot of, again, with its like time jump problems and everything, I do think it's better pace. Well, maybe not pace, but like it is more focused. Like there is like a beginning, middle, and end. With season 2, it does feel like we are like stuck in a very similar place. That again, I don't think it's bad because that's the point. It's like the middle portion of the war. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like how we've been talking about in the show is like you could like just like switch things here and there just to make it a little bit better with like the character dynamics. But
because like I had so much fun with Aemond this season. I have so much fun with Daemon. Aegon was surprisingly more complex than I ever thought from season 1. Rhaenyra, Alicent, exactly. I liked a lot of these character arcs more than season 1. But at the same time, like you're right, narratively, season 1 was a lot tighter. The romance, the intriguing stuff between Daemon and Rhaenyra with Millie was just peak for me.
And Patty Considine, like that's still probably the best performance still in the show. Yeah,
Patty and Rhys Ifans are just some of my favorite performances in the show. But the new generation again of like Matt Smith continues to excel. Emma continues to excel. They're great. And Olivia Cook, always serving.
Cooking.
Always cooking. Exactly. And I just love this show. And again, it's very similar to Game of Thrones season 1 and 2, where I think I like season 2 a bit more than season 1, but like they're both very interesting seasons in their own right.
Yeah.
So yeah, what a great season. What a great time talking every week with you, Edgar. This is great, especially as a non-book watcher or book reader as myself. I'm just like, no idea how each episode is going to turn out.
Yeah.
But just following the breadcrumbs, we could easily showcase and talk about and discuss a lot of the easily seen character arcs, like with Daemon and stuff. So,
yeah. Well, like you said, like I had a great time doing the show with you for all these 8 weeks, and I cannot wait to come back for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. That's gonna be a shorter show, but also a much like smaller scale show too. That's gonna be, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if that's gonna end up being like my favorite show out of the three, because like again, like it's gonna be very character focused. There's not a lot of like big battles and everything. It's like a coming of age story in Westeros. So that's exciting. That's like a fresh, like a breath of fresh air for
Do
this
we know
universe.
the showrunners for that one? Ryan's on it, I assume.
I don't think Ryan is in it. I think
Oh,
somebody else. But I know for that one, I think George did get involved
okay,
in that one. Like I think he might have written an episode for that one.
cool.
I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that.
And what do you think? So, looking at the landscape ahead for Game of Thrones, recently George R. R. Martin did confirm there's like a couple live action shows that are in development. Again, not Jon Snow that got canceled, but we are still getting seemingly Aegon's Conquest, and I think the 10,000 ships might still be a thing.
I think is that animated or is that live action? I
It
think
could be animated as well.
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah, there's a couple animated, couple live action stuff coming, but for 2025 is Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And again, for Edgar, is Night of the Seven Kingdoms a one season thing, like a limited series, or do you think it's going to have a season 1, 2, and 3?
For a Night of the Seven Kingdoms.
Yeah.
I think it will probably be like 3 seasons, just because there's like 3 full-on novellas. Well, actually, it might be more. I don't remember. But the first one I think is the Hedge Knight, and then is the Mystery Knight. So I wouldn't be surprised if we, in season 1, I think it's only supposed to be 6 episodes. So I wouldn't be surprised if we just like adapt the first novella in
And then just
season 1.
Go from novella to novella. Okay.
Yeah.
And are all those? Is the Hedge Knight story concluded, or is he writing more?
He's writing more, but at least the difference between that and Game of Thrones is that at least we know where Eggs and Duncan's storyline ends because of the history books. Like we know where it ends. But like the road getting there is still like there still needs like more books to be written about.
Okay.
As it is coming with George.
How old is George, guys? Is he 90? Is he 80?
He was born in 48.
48
make the math.
52 plus 24, 76.
76?
70s.
Let's just say that.
70s. I'm nervous for his health, guys, but I want him to keep writing forever. Does he have a protege just in case something happens?
I mean, if he has like assistants. One of his assistants actually wrote episode 7 or 6 of the season, I think.
Cool. So that's good. I just like, I'm always worried about that. We've lost a lot of people this year. It's a lot of great celebrities. So, anyways, 2025 Hedge Knight, 2026 season 3. Now, 2027, I always thought was going to be like Aegon's Conquest, but that could be Hedge Knight season 2. I don't know how far along they are with Aegon's Conquest.
I think that's still just like early development, so I don't think we're gonna hear anything like conclusive about that show until maybe next year, and maybe that's like 2028 or something.
Okay. So 2028, I feel like that's the end of House of the Dragon, because that'd be 2 years after.
Yeah, 3. I mean, if I was HBO, I would just wait for Aegon to fully come out until House of the Dragon ends.
That'd be the smarter move. Yeah. And will they keep like House of the Dragon surname?
I highly doubt. They're probably just gonna call it the Conquest or something like that.
Aegon's Conquest, yeah. So a lot of Game of Thrones on the horizon, both animated live action and more podcast on the horizon as well. You guys can find me on Twitter, Harris EV9, talking all things the Olympics. Noah Lyles, 100-meter king. I'm a huge Olympics fan, so I've been watching track and field, and that ends this weekend as well. Also tweeting about Big Brother. Live feeds are good. The season's very good, so I'm very happy about that. And I start up work this Thursday. The summer vacation has come to an end. It just sucks, but it's gonna be my 4th year teaching, starting this year. So there we go.
Yeah, and you can find this podcast at WHFG Podcast on Instagram and Twitter and all other social media such as Threads. And we'll probably most likely be back tomorrow with our monthly recap of what we watched in the month of July. So if you watch this show up to this point, stay tuned for tomorrow. We'll be talking about Trap and Deadpool and Wolverine.
Long legs.
I saw that movie so long ago. I feel like I saw it so long ago that
was that June or July? I feel like Long Legs was July.
I think it was July, but I think I saw it in June, like a screening. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, like that, and then what else? we might talk about other shows maybe next year about it. We still haven't figured that out. We have other shows like our ranking episodes. Hopefully we can film an episode before everybody goes back to work and school and everything. So yeah. And you can find me at ETG on all social medias. And you can also find this podcast, the audio version, on Spotify and iTunes. And leave a review, subscribe, like, all the good stuff. And well, until the next time, we don't know what's going to be, but hopefully next spring for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. We'll be right back. And thank you for watching.